welcome to my channel. I'm so excited to have you, especially because I've been following you for, wow. I feel like it was fate. Like a friend introduced me to your page, and now you're right here in front of me. And I just knew when I came across you that you are magical. So I want to talk about your magic. I want to talk about...
I love that you got such a spiritual introduction to me, and I needed to know how to use paper backdrops. And there you were.
That's hilarious. I know, but that's, you know, the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so do you want to talk us through... Because you do a lot.
Yeah.
And I also want to talk about, like, the juggling and the balancing act of doing a lot in 2018.
Yeah.
So, but what do you feel like you are? Are you an artist? Are you just a creator?
I just identify as a DJ, a TV presenter, and then a content creator.
Yeah.
That's
so
it.
When
there are other things that go within that, but it's just too complicated.
I feel. I know it's a lot. But when did this all begin?
I would say within the last 4 years or so. I definitely had a stage where I was like, there is no way I can, you know, dedicate so much of my time and my life. Like, I'd much rather waste my money than my time. And I realized I was wasting a lot of my time working for other people and amplifying their businesses as a full-time employee of, like, a PR agency. And so I was like, surely, like, I can get paid to be myself. Crazy things happen. And so while I didn't know how I was going to do that, I definitely pointed myself towards opportunities that would allow me to do that. So DJing was one of those things where I only did it because I wanted to, I guess, separate myself from the monotony of what I thought my life was. So I didn't want to be in the office. I needed, like, you know, something exciting again. And that was never anything I thought I could monetize, let alone, like, do as a career. Started with MTV. They were going to profile me for, like, an it girl thing, like a cool DJ.
Yeah. How did that happen? So did you reach out to MTV?
No, they reached out to me first to do a profile, and then it didn't happen because the producer who was going to do the profile left. And I was like, can I have an email to, like, you know, continue conversations? And they were like, oh, it's not really happening. And then it was pretty serendipitous because they were looking for TV presenters, people who specialise. They wanted somebody in news or music, and I was like, oh, I'm a DJ and I like pop culture, sure. So I was like, oh,
so
you know,
works.
I can do what do you call it, a test video. And they were like, okay, come in, have you done TV work before? And I was like, sure.
So you lie until you, like, you fake it until
I definitely lied and said I was DJ way before I'd ever touched, like, actual DJ deck, because I knew I could do it.
Yeah. How do you find that? That's something that I really struggle with a lot. Self-doubt, imposter syndrome. How do you convince yourself that you are the person that you want to be? Like, you know that there's a gap between who you are and who you want to be. How do you convince yourself that you can be that person?
I mean, it's just looking at the facts today. I mean, so much of what you would have experienced in your life today would be you defying the odds, even if it's you going to a certain school or traveling across the world. Like, we do difficult things all day, every day. Yeah. And applying ourselves is something we don't do as much as we should. And so, you know, I started to think about in situations where I needed to show up. And I did, you know, like when you're cramming for an assignment, or when you think the odds are against you and you finally get something over the line. Like, you know, crazy things have happened. And so I was like, worst case scenario is I can just say I didn't want to do it anymore if I couldn't do it. Yeah. So, and I think I've always been of the belief that nobody is checking for you as much as you're checking for you. So, even if I said it and it wasn't true, people weren't doing, you know, the background checks to be like, oh, let me really see what's happening here. Yeah. People love smoke and mirrors. So it's just playing on what people already know. It's just playing on the fact that people already know and do this. Like, advertising, smoke and mirrors, marketing, PR, smoke and mirrors. Like, you believe things way before you know them to be true.
Oh, wow.
And maybe because I'm spiritual, so I'm kind of like, whatever.
Yeah, and I want to talk about your spirituality. But also, I have a question. I feel like a lot of us in this, especially as creatives, you have a lot of interests or you have a lot of passions. Yeah. And you don't really know where to begin, like which one to start with. How did you know to start with DJing and not fashion?
I started with fashion. I did that.
So how did you know? How do you know which one to begin with?
You have to do an action. I think, you know, you don't know what you don't know. As banal as that may sound, you don't have the information.
Facts.
So you need to start with something and then use that as a tool to distill whether or not that's the right benchmark for you. And so there was a time where I was like, I'll do fashion. I went to a fashion business school, dropped out because I was like, this isn't conducive to what I want to do. Why am I learning how to draw pictures when I'm trying to create tangible items? And so I stopped. I just gave myself room to try and then acknowledge when things and fail and acknowledge when things just weren't working, because I don't play losing games for me, and I need to be good when I do something or I don't do it. And so that's a really good litmus test for me. Do I feel like I'm doing well at this thing? If not, park it. Because what keeps me motivated more than my potential and my purpose is, my ego. My ego keeps me motivated and it keeps me moving. And so if my ego is bruised because I'm trying to do something that isn't fulfilling me or nourishing me in a way that I thought it would, then I will stop doing it. Because if it's that little like seed that's frustrating me now, it will be a boulder eventually. It'll be that intangible thing that's holding me back and nobody can help me and nobody can see. And I just didn't want to be that bruised creative. So it's like, find what you can do well and do it. And you can do the other things, but it's learning to prioritize, what you can do as a hobby that fulfills you, in a little way, and then what you'll actually spend your time and your hours towards.
Yeah. Okay, I can tell you're very self-aware. Like, you definitely are rooted in self.
Yeah.
When did this begin? Or what is your spiritual practice, if you have one? Yeah.
So I definitely was raised as a Christian. Okay. And I think even though I partook in, the practices of, I never really believed it, because I think that it contradicted with how I was raised. While my mum believed in something greater than herself, she encouraged me to believe solely in myself. And so that contradiction very early on made it really hard for me to give everything up to this, I guess, omnipotent presence that I didn't feel connected to, because my mum was the messenger between that sort of experience. Like, she took me to church, she told me to read the Bible.
So was she Christian?
Yeah, and she's still practicing. She's in the choir and all that good stuff. But she definitely placed a lot of emphasis in me finding my power through myself. So she would really just over enthuse this sense of confidence and instill just this, I guess, undoubtable sense of confidence that you can do it. You're my daughter, I just don't know why you question that, or you don't like that about yourself. That's really strange. I don't see what you see. And so even if I didn't believe it, she believed it for me. So it was enough that my mum thought I was great, and she thought I was intelligent, and she thought I was smart, and she really made it a point to remind me of it even when I didn't think so myself. And so that, coupled with the reality of the fact that the world is just a crazy place to be, planes can fly and boats can float, and so I can't have this job that I want. It just doesn't make any sense. Right. I don't. It's almost like playing on the fact that the world is so absurd and it's so bizarre that surely the things that I'm wishing and wanting for aren't the craziest things that someone's ever requested from their place. Right. But I'm also conflicted because a big part of me, as I said, is quite logical, and so it's almost taking the absurdity from the world in itself and applying that to what I know. Is that, yes, I know that magic and things are as real as they're not real, but that's secondary to the fact that I believe that I want to do these things. Oh, so why not do it? So why not? I don't have anything to lose. You have a sort of fearlessness about you. Yeah. Where does that come from? It's it's so compelling and enticing. She's a cult leader. Yeah. I think it's because are you genuinely, so for example, when you dropped out of school, were you scared, or did you do it despite the fear? No, I wasn't scared at all, though. Really? Because I think what motivated me to go to school wasn't what school could give me. It's what I could gather from that experience. So if I didn't have the breadth of knowledge to really look at that situation and gather it and acknowledge it for what it was, then it wasn't useful to me anyway. So it didn't feel like I was giving up something amazing. It just felt like it wasn't for me. You're transitioning. I was transitioning out of it. I think it's not necessarily fearlessness, because there are a lot of things that scare me. I'm very motivated by security. What's your sign? Are you an earth sign? I'm an Aries. I'm a fire sign. Oh, you're a fire sign. I only learned to be grounded. I was this is me in as a 24-year-old. I was 18 and obnoxious, loud, boisterous, rude, brazy. I know. I'm an Aries moon, so I feel you. Laughing in a room, always. Just look at me. Yeah. And then we all have that, whether it's externally or we're just a loud presence. And so that's definitely the foundation of me. Yeah. And having that being validated by everybody around you also helps, because you know, I feel as though we live in a very rewards-based society, and everybody's sort of like counting their points and making sure the people that they surround themselves with are also worthy. So even if there were opportunities where I didn't feel great, I had my mum telling me, my friends telling me, my boyfriend's telling me all these things, it was just adding to what I knew to be true. And so when I was feeling a little bit weak and resolved, I was like, well, these people think I'm great, and that's enough.
Yeah,
you know?
that's enough.
So I don't necessarily think it's fearlessness, but I think it's me just being really realistic about how serious a lot of things aren't, and sort of reprioritizing what is actually serious to me.
So what do you live by? Like, what is your mantra, your philosophy?
Yeah.
Or even your ritual?
I think, like, the basis of my spiritual practice is definitely in the law of attraction and manifesting, and only discovered that recently because my mantra was everything that promoted a sense of self. Like, I was like, if you know better, you can do better. So there's always this part of me that's always striving to understand more than I know about myself, and to question all those things I know to be true. So I think, you know, when it comes to being self-aware, you do think you're the smartest person in the room, and it's just not true.
Yeah.
You know, I imagine what I thought to be the truth when I was 18, 19, and now I'm just like, look at that child. And everyone just let you speak, and everyone validated your nonsense because you gave off that energy. So it's like, when you know better, you do better.
Right.
If someone says no to you, you're talking to the wrong person. And that's just because we make people gatekeepers of our future just to call them enemies of our progress.
Oh my God.
You know, and
listen, we need to let that sit. You need to say that one more time for the people in the back.
We let people be gatekeepers of our future just to call them enemies of our progress when they don't go right. And it's very true.
Yeah.
It's like when you look back on when things don't go right, it's like, oh, you know, my parents made me do that. Or like, if I didn't have a boyfriend at that time, then I would have been, you know, more involved. If I didn't have those friends in college, then I would have listened. And it's like, the common thread here is you. And your lack of resolve, and your lack of judgment, and your lack of willpower. So just acknowledge that.
Yeah.
You know? I think that and also just like always being in a frenzy of an existential crisis. Like every time every time I feel as though I've just finally gotten a hold of what I'm meant to be doing, I'm like, well, what is the point?
And then you question, you're like,
what do I do? Why do I involve so much energy in that? Why do I have those friends? Why do I live where I live?
Yeah. But do you feel like being introspective in that way is actually part of your spiritual practice?
Of course.
You know, because I feel like on one hand, it tortures me and I'm a masochist. Because I'm always like, oh my God, what am I doing? Why are we here? Everything is meaningless. Yeah. But at the same time, that helps me so much to like contextualize and reinterrogate my sense of self.
It's very interesting. And I like the person I'm becoming when I give myself time to acknowledge that, you know, I'm the most important person in the world. I'm the least important person in the world. Like the duality of self is what keeps me very aware of who I am in this big bad world. I'm just like one person out of billions. Like this little change that I may make, it might be important to me in this time, in this day. But in the grand scheme of things, just like relax.
Yeah, like nothing is ever that deep.
Or start to harness that worry with intention and start to worry about things that are truly like getting you down.
Yeah.
Because I remember I just started and stopped seeing this therapist because again, it's like the self-aware thing. Like, do I need this help? Should I talk to someone? But I was like, I'll give it a go. But she said I have this preoccupation with wasted time, and I definitely do because...
Ooh, what does that mean?
Well, because it's the phrasing I use. I'm like, well, why would we do that? That's a waste of time. Or like, that's taking too long. Or like, I don't want to do that because it's going to take 5 years and I can just do it in 1 year. She's like, what are you rushing towards? Like, what's this big end goal that you feel like you're getting to? And I was
I'm triggered.
Me? It's very spooky. And I don't know, she's like, everything about you is like, there's this sense
oriented around time
and like this purpose. But like you like one won't help you find the other. It's a state of being, not a destination. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop you there
because you've been read.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, okay, noted.
I'm a Black South African, and growing up mostly in Europe, but just all around the world, I feel like I always saw Black America as like the purveyors of Black culture. And so I internalized that as my own Blackness. Yes. And it's only very recently, you know, as like a young emerging adult that I've actually been actively questioning and like learning about what is my Blackness and what does it look like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? And I just think that's, I don't know, something that we don't really talk about, especially as artists who are not Black American.
Yeah.
And I also wonder, I asked about this on my Instagram the other day. I wonder a lot, how does, for people in all genres of art, and especially because in the realm of music, because I'm not in there at all, but how does whiteness affect your creativity? Like,
I mean,
do you feel like you need to conform to a certain taste or like genre of music?
I definitely think that there, yes and no, because I feel like there's like an insane amount of white people who would love to take Black culture as their own and see Black people and want to amplify them in spaces because of the proximity that Black person has to them. It makes them feel like they're across it and they've got, you know, a good idea of what culture is. I definitely think there's a dilution of lived experience because, you know, like let's say I wanted to integrate like my narrative about what it's like looking at my life in retrospect and understanding that even though I had a seat at the table, I was like, you know, my chair was pulled out by a white person who then told me what I could eat and what I could like and how and what I needed to do to stay at that table.
Yeah.
That's not going to be understood. And then it's like, okay, how to dilute that message? And it's like, it's almost fighting with what messages can I even share because my audience is not going to digest them in a way that even matters. Like, you're not my audience for this topic.
Right.
But that is my life. Like, my audience is predominantly white. My friends are predominantly white. Like, my access to Blackness is so new and learned. And those people would have had upbringing similar to mine. So it's this weird, like, duality of self where you're hyper aware of the people that, you're hyper aware of the people that I guess are part of the problem, but they also are your people. I can't disregard how whiteness has played a huge part in the person I am today. Because if I would have just adopted what I knew to be Black characteristics, then I probably wouldn't have had placed so much emphasis in certain things, like being really articulate. I hated when people would use like AAVE around me.
Oh,
so
really?
I would, because it was such a novelty to white Australians. Like, yes, queen, slay. I'd be like, no, we don't speak like that. Even if I would, we're not going to do that because I know what's happening here and I know you're distilling my whole being into a fun little novelty that you saw on Tumblr, and I get it, but we're not doing that. So I think that's the tricky thing. It's like trying to like teach myself and teach people around me and also justify why all of a sudden I'm now the authority. Well, that's the other thing, because I don't want to be seen as the authority
on Blackness
because it's just it's because I'm not, and I'm learning as I go. But you know, someone needs to be the authority when you're in predominantly white spaces, and everyone's like, love this Kendrick Lamar song, gonna say the word. And I mean, like, if I'm feeling uncomfortable, you should feel uncomfortable too. You know, like and I think also acknowledging that when it comes to a lot of music spaces in Australia, I do have privilege and I do have a certain.
What do you think is your privilege?
Well,
the coolness of Blackness.
Well, that's it. The value they put on being a musician, being a creative, and being Black. Like, it's like the trifecta, and it's like, well, I have that. I'm going to hold it over your head. Like, in this space, I am the authority. Yeah, it's like, you know, don't get uncomfortable, don't get defensive. I know what I heard. I've been hearing it for this last 20 minutes. I don't want you to stifle your fun, but just know you don't have access to that word. So if you're going to say it, don't do it around me. Move. And he was like,
that's that on that.
And he was like, oh, but I wasn't saying it. I sung it. And I was like,
what do you mean? The caucasity. Like,
I wish I'd seen my face. And I was like, babes, I'm not having this conversation again. Now you're not going to say it because I'm not doing this. Then he was like, And I was like, but that's where we live. Like, when people are like, I would never say it.
Yeah, I'm not. You know what it is? It's because people are more offended by being called racist than by actually being racist. And that's the tea. That's the tea.
And I was like, but it's like in that environment, like, he paid to be there. That's his right, you know, like, I'm being paid to be there. So if anything, like, he's got more ownership over this space than I do.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't really care anymore. I'm uncomfortable. Now you'll be uncomfortable. I
love it. I love that energy.
And because, you know, it's one of those things where how quickly this like 6'5" burly white broad male submitted just because I said don't do it. Imagine if we had those conversations every time. I was like, don't do it. He didn't do it. Yes, he fought me on it. Yes, he's like, well, I didn't say it, but he didn't do it.
Facts.
So I was like, well, one down. And I remember the girl with me, she's like, oh my God, you're so brazen. I'm like, I'm not even brazen though. Like, this is like, it's as simple as like, if somebody was sitting in my seat and I was like, hey, my name's in that seat. Like, and would you mind getting up?
Yeah, it's taking ownership of what's yours.
And it's even the principle, because I think, you know, to be fair, there was a long time where I wasn't offended by people using the word around me, because I didn't have the experience with the word. I learned that it was offensive as quickly as I learned that some people had more rights to it than others. Like, it's just, I'd never said it. It's not my thing, but it's almost like in that time, I was like, well, no, like, how's he gonna learn? Like, he obviously thinks that, you know, the rules don't apply to him, so I'm gonna remind him that they do. And hopefully it's uncomfortable and awkward enough that he's like, oh, I don't want to experience that again. And that'll be enough for him to stop, you know, because I feel like performing social awareness is the first step to actually, like, understanding.
Getting into it. Yeah, honestly, I feel like a lot of us do perform social awareness before we're there. 100%. Like, I was your problematic fave. Do you feel like you are walking in your purpose? Have you found your purpose? Yeah. What is it? Why are you here on this planet? Why do you create? It's a big question, I know.
Only to talk about my experience as I see them, because I feel as though I'm in a lot of ways just a walking paradox. I'm a walking oxymoron.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, I am the things I hate and I am the things I love. You know, I do things that I objectively shouldn't, and I do things that I should. And it's just, you know, it's that duality that I feel like people are scared to communicate, like knowing that you're flawed and also blessed and highly favored, like knowing that you are the problem and you are the solution. I just feel like I'm in this position where I'm shameless in knowing that, and I'm shameless in my communication of that. And the more I can do this, the more I can normalize it, and like that gives me divine purpose. It is my purpose, because anything else is secondary to that, because it doesn't fulfill me in a way that is even close to being viable or sustainable. Like any external validation I've gotten from DJing or doing beauty or TV presenting is so secondary to how it feels to talk to one person about something that matters to me.
Snaps.
For so long my purpose was so intermingled with income, revenue, money, all of it, which was good for a while because I was making a lot of it, but as soon as it started to dwindle or settle, I started to really reevaluate how I felt about myself, which wasn't good, and it made me kind of question. It's like no amount of money will ever be enough, and no amount of zeros will ever feel as good as I want it to. So while that's great and we're going to keep asking for those checks to be cashed and those invoices to be paid, I need to find another way to sustain myself, and that's through self.
Knowing what you know now, what would you tell your 16-year-old self? Do you think she'd be proud of you?
I don't even know what she wanted for herself. I mean, yeah, because when I was 16, I was just like so obsessed with access and possibility. And what life would be like if I just could like be in those spaces and hang out with those people and go to those places. She'd be disinterested but equal parts proud. She'd be like, I don't care, but good for you.
Also, I actually wanted to ask you this before. How do you feel about fame? Is that something that you are down for? Is it something you're actively seeking?
I'm so down for fame because I realized that you know, like, I definitely think that in a lot of parts life is the game, and we're meeting checkpoints, we're cashing in like credits, and you know, access is the equivalent to like the next step, and you don't get access without fame or fame adjacent behavior. And so I'm down for it. I definitely think the parameters of fame are definitely changing, and I don't think they're going to hold as much weight as they did 10 years ago.
Because everyone can be famous now,
and I definitely think we all have access to some kind of fame in some capacity. So I mean, just like the whole notion of social media is role-playing, or, you know, it's, role-playing fame. Like, we all have access to it in some capacity.
Okay, when does the book drop?
2019.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll be waiting.
I'll be waiting.
All of her links in the description box below. Make sure to read the description box. Follow. Where can we find you?
Flex Mami on everything.
Okay. And can we watch your show on MTV?
Yeah, so I'm on MTV every second of the day, just like interstitial news. So
love it.
Turn on MTV, I'll be on there in minutes.
Lovely.
Talking about Kanye again.
So let us know what you thought about this conversation. Continue the conversation in the description, in the comment section. And let me know what else you'd like me to talk about. Thank you guys so much for watching. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye.